I'd use the theme song, but then I probably wouldn't be able to post it on YouTube. Before we get into it, let me share my dear friend Akuaba. Akuaba is a wooden fetish from Ghana and is a fertility statue. This is one of 3 fertility statues of this form that have been a deep and regular part of my practice for the last semester. No, I'm not trying to make any more babies, although I do seem to have ended up with a 3.5-year-old in my home, whom I love dearly. But it turns out fertility engagement is more than just projection of human life forms. This time, on Ready to Die, which is a Biggie Smalls reference, just in case. We begin in a fetal position inside of our high-dose LSD journey. My dosage was 200 micrograms for the first journey. In blue, we have me curled up, and above and below, we have these sound effects and symbols. The sound effects were one of if you picture a blowhorn and focus on the last few seconds of the sensation, that that doesn't really ever seem like it's going to end. I spent a lot of time hearing that sound in conjunction with metal clanking against itself. Shing, shing, shing. It was so loud that I oftentimes found myself covering my ears trying to get it to stop, hoping that it would stop. I couldn't understand why Leela would have so much of that sound inside of our experience. And it wasn't until more than 24 hours that I realized that that wasn't, in fact, a part of the soundtrack. Instead, it was part of my own personal soundtrack. That's one instance of something that was noteworthy and not actually a part of the overall experience. I went to the bathroom a lot. I had a really delightful sitter. That sitter was Laura, and I would have peed enough to probably pee a small river. So one of the things that stood out for me is that every time Laura took me to the restroom, instead of it being like a direct path to the restroom, for which I thought I had a sound idea of, it seemed like we went around the bend and took these like peculiar places or directions to get to the place that we would ultimately every single time. And I found myself confused by this. I would also experience this like pitter-patter that would happen along my body as we were traveling together. And the best way that I could describe it at the time would be like you go to a private driveway. You have these like triangular metal posts that say no trespassing or do not enter. You get out your car, you open those things. So if you take those and make them softer, a bit more flexible, and then you coat them with, say, car wash brushless soft bits, and that would be a reasonable way to describe the like physical sensation that I'm having on my body. Yet again, it wasn't until after I sat for my compadre that I learned that this also was something that was not a part of the physical experience. In fact, every single time it happened, I thought it was Leela and his prankstery jokes, just like doing another thing to serve to provide us with physical inspiration or experience to engage our systems. Little did I know. We'll come back to this one. It's appropriately positioned chronologically, but I don't actually know that part yet. Moving into the second ceremony, this is all of us. We are 150 micrograms, so less than the previous. We've done a lot of practice and thought around engaging quiver. I have experienced, in the days of my childhood, the Holy Ghost by dancing and speaking in tongues prior to the ceremony. It's not often that I think to myself, thanks, Black Christian Church, for carving out those early pathways for me to be able to more fully embrace some of what we were being engaged with in Guasca. So this is a representation of myself and the serpent goddess taking up the entirety of my landscape, my visual and awareness landscape. It was so packed that the only way that I was able to notice that it was a serpent that was moving in this figure eight-like shape would be the little bits of bright white light that would escape from behind the serpent goddess as the intersections of the of its patterning would come across itself. It was really quite beautiful and also delightful. Dance, did I dance? So we have a few different iterations of dancing here. This one on the bottom is this really interesting movement that is like was like charging of a battery while also allowing my muscles a chance to separate from their bones and jiggle a little so that I could have more energy. It was really true, thank you, what Leela said about the more energy you use, the more tired you are, the more energy you get. I tell you what, that certainly happened. I nearly fell over so many times. Can't tell you how I didn't fall over, other than to say there's a connection between this magic and the heroin engager on the street who never quite falls over. And then we come to the most exciting bit, an opportunity to experience my ancestors. Picture yourself sitting in a hair salon chair, looking at yourself in the mirror, and the reflection that you see in the mirror is not simply yourself, but it is your ancestry, and it is morphing from individual to individual as time goes on. And in your periphery, you can see the ancestors lined behind you with the backdrop of the Sahara. Talk about a beautiful thing to observe. I got to dance with them and sing with them and jump around and celebrate my daughter's college graduation, which also happened to happen on that day. And I really got to experience amounts of joy that were theirs, that they used not just to engage with the plights of being themselves, but also the joy that came automatically from just simply being them. In conjunction with that, I got to experience the sorrow that came along with that. Guttural sounds that my body has never made before, that felt layered, that felt like more than simply my vocal cords were producing sounds. came out of my body, and it was an amount of discomfort that I can't have been able to experience before. What I realized weeks later was not that this padding of my body that I experienced every time I went to the restroom was a farce provided by Leela, but instead it was actually a reverse experience of going through the transatlantic slave trade. It was my body being manipulated and engaged and bumped up against and treated like chattel, so that I could ultimately get back home, so that I could get back to the place of my ancestors. I came back with some special tools and some gifts and an ability to engage that space, and I am hella excited to deepen my relationship to that space and to my ancestors, and to learn as much as I can about how that can be a space that is deeply supporting for myself and my community. That's what I have. Thank you for your attention.